12:30, so we might start. I'd like to welcome everyone as you all come into the Zoom webinar. Our topic for today is how to drive your career and create your own opportunities. And my name is Susan Pincus, and I'm the National Careers Professional. And I'm joined today with three wonderful panelists. I have Frances, I have Kiara, and I also have Courtney. So welcome to you and welcome to our panelists. So just before I go into a little bit more detail about our panelists, I just wanted to start off and do an acknowledgement of the country. So I will just start with that. As we gather for this webinar, we recognise that many of us are on different lands of different traditional custodians. I would like to acknowledge all of the traditional custodians of the lands we are all present on today, and any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are participating in this webinar. I pay my respects to each of their elders, past, present, and emerging. So just to welcome participants as they log on. Today's webinar is how to drive your career and create your own opportunities. So what we'll be discussing is building your professional profile, overcoming challenges and imposter syndrome, how to best connect with the profession, and creating and taking advantage of opportunities. So I'd like to start and introduce you to our three panelists. So starting off with Kiara. She is a collaborative family lawyer with the Brisbane Family Law Centre. So Kiara is also a College of Law Masters student and a trashy TV tragic. In 2018, Kiara was a finalist in the Law Student of the Year category in the Lawyers Weekly Australian Women in Law Awards. Kiara calls for students to take an authentic approach to their law degree and choose a path that's truly theirs. Kiara champions all things colour and fun, as you can see by what she's wearing and her glasses, as well as doing law outside of the box. Also in 2018, Kiara graduated with a Bachelor of Laws and a Bachelor of Government and International Relations, as well as completing her path to admission. Kiara works as a collaborative family lawyer, as mentioned before, at the Brisbane Family Law Centre, helping people to be the best they can following separation and divorce. Kiara practices with a calm and kind approach to separation outside of the court system, favouring collaborative practice wherever possible. Kiara believes everyone has a right to an awesome life, her clients, her loved ones, and herself. Welcome, Kiara. Frances. Frances is an Assistant Director in the Executive and Governance team at the ACCC. This team manages the agency's strategy, governance, parliamentary liaison, as well as supporting the ACCC commissioners. During his time at the ACCC, Frances has been involved in investigations, enforcement action, ministerial briefings, as well as internal governance activities. Frances studied law as a mature student following a successful career in accounting and business. A critical element of the career transition Frances undertook was to find an organisation which made a meaningful contribution to the community. A number of years in the ACCC is certainly meeting that requirement. Our last panellist is Courtney. Courtney is the legal counsel, and she is the only person in legal counsel for Nando's. Just in case you don't know, a large, fast, casual dining restaurant chain specialising in flame-grilled peri-peri chicken products with a strong focus on equality, diversity, and sustainability. Courtney has only ever worked as an in-house lawyer, not in private practice, as she's very passionate towards the importance of in-house counsel and the value-add opportunities available to businesses. During her time practicing in the last 9 years, she's worked primarily for large franchises in the FMCG and health and fitness industries. Courtney practices predominantly in franchising, property, industrial, commercial and contract law, with a focus on contract negotiation and drafting, compliance matters, alternative dispute resolution, and negotiation and risk mitigation strategies. In addition to her legal qualifications, Courtney has also completed a Master's in Business Administration to further enhance her ability to provide relevant and adaptable commercial solutions to legal and risk mitigation strategies for the business. Welcome, Courtney. So we're going to kick off with the questions. I'm going to ask each of the panelists, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up questions to all the attendees at around 1:15. So we'll have 15 minutes or so for questions. And if you could just put those into the Q&A screen rather than chat, it just makes it easier for me to coordinate all the questions that come in later on. So I'm going to kick off and start with you, Frances. So my first question is, studying law as a mature student and doing law as a second career, what were some of the challenges and obstacles that you had to overcome?
Thanks, Susan. I think, you know, in reflecting upon this question and thinking about it, it's very much about, well, you're stepping off an established platform and you're going to the bottom of the ladder, and it's the mindset that says, well, that's okay. I am here to learn. You know, I'm going to be managed by people who are much younger than me, who will know a lot more than me, and that I need to learn off. So there's a bit of an ego challenge that needs to be dealt with among some people. Other people, you know, it may not be as pronounced, but that's certainly something that is about just having that mindset of, all right, there's going to be some really steep learning curves. It's going to be some really steep or periods of sort of extreme uncomfortability, not really knowing what's going on and how it all works, and just finding your way and getting used to that uncomfort.
Okay, so in terms of how you did that, can you just take us briefly through how you did adjust your mindset?
Oh, it's very much about just getting used to just being uncomfortable in this state of, I've got to learn off people, I've got to ask questions, I've got to be open to feedback that sometimes I might find, you know, a little bit challenging, that will make me a better operator. And so it's that mindset, just being very open to learning and growth and accepting people's comments from the point of view of they want you to be better at what you're doing and to learn.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I often find that mature age students and graduates who are studying law later, they often see that as being a negative. But let's kind of turn that around, and perhaps you want to share with us, like, what do you think some of the positives have been of having all that life experience in that previous career?
Oh, you can, it's definitely, there's a lot of advantages to it. I mean, you learn how to learn when you're in a job, regardless of what you're doing. You learn how to learn from other people. You learn how to ask questions. You learn how to communicate, relate to others. And you can take that and transplant it very successfully from areas you wouldn't think were necessarily relevant. And you know, if I think of the ACCC, there's a couple of general managers who run enforcement divisions, and their background, you know, their first career was nursing, where they were in ICU or other areas. They learned to communicate really, really well with people, and were able to take those skills and transplant them to an investigations role, where you're out there talking to people, trying to unearth what's happened.
Right. So it's kind of very much looking and reframing that in a positive way, and also around how that can benefit your potential employer.
Absolutely, but it's also, I guess, thinking about, well, what are the skills that I have developed during my period of work so far, and how can they be applied? And then just being able to articulate them in a really succinct way.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Courtney, just moving on to you, and I actually should have mentioned it before, that the irony here is that both Frances and Courtney also, when they started off in law, they felt that they wanted to actually move into family law, which is obviously what Kiara's doing, but it didn't quite happen that way. So for Courtney, how did you actually end up going down the pathway of in-house legal counsel?
Yeah, funnily enough, considering we're in a career planning session, I actually fell into it. So I didn't.
Okay.
So I think it's really important not only to have a plan, but also to be open to other things that might come up, and go with the flow a little bit. So in saying that, I fell into it and it wasn't part of the plan. My plan, though, was I wanted to grow and develop in the law, and an opportunity came my way for a legal administrative position while I was studying at uni with Wendy's Super Sundays. So they're a large retail franchise of hot dogs and ice cream. So I've been very lucky in my career.
Yeah, like a lot
very
of
lucky.
big brands out there.
Exactly right. So I kind of thought to myself that would be a really great starting opportunity in an administrative type role while I was still studying, but just get that exposure at that level. And I was incredibly lucky to work directly one-on-one with a very experienced general counsel at the time. And my career just went from there. I fell in love with in-house. I learned all about what it meant and what it involved, and it took off from there. So I think my broader career goal and planning was to just grow and develop and be the best lawyer that I could in private practice at the time, funnily enough, as a family lawyer, as you mentioned. But I had to set myself some shorter term, more achievable goals, career goals as well, because otherwise it was just kind of too big picture. And while I was looking at a lot of my friends who were going through uni, they were all fighting for clerkships at top tier firms, which is absolutely a great strategy for some if that's where they want to be. They were kind of not seeing the other opportunities that might come up as well. So it's really being, I think, true to yourself and what you want to get out of it. And for me, I love being part of a business. I love being part of a brand. When I was at Wendy's, I ate way too many hot dogs, way too much ice cream. I put on so many kilos, and then I went to Curves and Jenny Craig, weight loss fitness company, lost it all again. So, it's a great brand journey, and that's what's really important to me. So I get to do the law and that as well.
Yeah, no, that's really exciting, and I like the way you describe it as falling into it as well, because there are some that are very structured and very methodical in their career planning, but for you, as you say, you started off in that area and obviously loved it, so hence you're still in it to this day.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Over to you, Kiara. Take us through, because I always love your story. Take us through how being strategic and purposeful made your dream of being a family lawyer come to fruition. So your journey was probably quite different to Courtney's in that you set your mind with a very, very strategic purpose and direction. So perhaps you can just share with all the participants today how you went about that.
Absolutely. I guess it's important to set us up by telling you a bit about who I was when I was at uni. So I felt just a bit different to other people. I wasn't inspired by the idea of working in commercial law. I understood that I probably would have to apply for a clerkship, but I didn't really know why. I spent all of my time either at work at a settlements clerk in a suburban firm on the Gold Coast. I'm from the Gold Coast. And if anyone's ever been a settlements clerk, that's the person that wears the smart shoes and runs up and down the main street of a CBD to make people's property transfers happen between banks and other law firms and settlement agencies. So I was having so much fun. There's a real community in property law in regional centres, and I was just having so much fun. I did that quite a lot. I worked 3 or 4 days a week. And that was way more exciting for me than uni was in terms of the coursework. I was also on the LSA because I'm one of those people that if there's a committee, I have to be on it because I'm just such an internal politics nerd. And I also would do things like, I would just love to go along to events or listen to panels and things like that. And the least exciting, least inspiring part of my law degree was the study. I didn't think I was academic. I didn't think that I knew I wasn't going to get the perfect grade for an average, and I didn't. My GPA started with 4 by the end of my degree. But at some point I realized, well, hang on a minute, I want to be a family lawyer. I realized that just because it made the most sense to me. And I thought, God, it's a bit silly to measure yourself against the metrics and measures in place to become a really successful commercial lawyer in Eagle Street on Brisbane if I actually didn't want to do that. So why was I getting stressed by the process of applying for clerkships? Why was I beating myself up about my GPA? Why was I sort of being a bit harsh on myself about how much I enjoyed all of the extra bits and pieces that I got to do if that's not what I needed to do? But I only came to that realization by checking in with the market. I think a job search is a market. People want things and people are giving things. So I checked into the market and I actually sort of typed in family lawyer near me or jumped on Seek to look at a family lawyer role. Even though I wasn't ready and I wasn't qualified, I wasn't ready for those roles, I wanted to know what people who employed family lawyers, what they were looking for, because I suspected I was measuring myself against the wrong metrics. And what I found was family law is predominantly practiced in boutique and small firms. The lion's share of family law work is done by boutique and small firms and by sole practitioners. I discovered that there are some family lawyers in Queensland, where I'm from, that have just an incredible brand, an incredible name for themselves. And those people are sole practitioners often. But there are a couple of mid-tier firms doing family law, but the family law team was just a part of a more general practice. And even a family law team within a big organisation sort of works like a cell in and of itself. And I looked at what the family lawyers around me were, and what they were experts in their field. They hired directly only when they needed work, not at the same time every year in a cyclical process. So if I thought to myself, and if I realised that the hiring process to be a family lawyer was going to be different than the commercial firms who were able to come and speak to us at university, then why was I trying to fit myself into the boxes that were on the wrong sort of page? I was on the wrong page. So what I also did, sort of serendipitously at the same time, I stumbled across a lawyer on Facebook and Instagram who did a lot of online marketing for their own personal brand. And all at the same time, I realized that the values that this person was talking about were my values. I wanted to practice like them. And because they shared so much about them, I got an insight into what it's like to be an owner of a family law firm. And so I worked backwards from there. I decided I wanted to work for that firm. Part of me knew that I could have a plan B, C, D, and E. But if I did work backwards, checked off the boxes that I saw that they wanted, and I didn't get a role with them, I knew I would at least be very, very well suited to another role. So I niched down. I put all my eggs in one basket. I started a personal brand because it was clear that personal branding was important to this firm. I started to talk about myself at events and online to signal to this person and then de facto to the market who I was. And ended up building a relationship with this person in the sense that, you know, I thought she was cool, she thought I was cool, and would just check in on what I was doing. And then it got very close to graduation. So suffice to say, I let the clerkship applications date go by, and I was the only one in my grade that did that, and it was terrifying, but I did it. So fast forward to the end of my degree, I put up a post on Instagram that said, you know, I'm done, I finished coursework, how exciting, wonder what my next step is going to be. And I woke up to an email the next morning from this person saying, oh, well, you're done. I've been waiting to see when you're done. Are you going to come in for an interview? Obviously, you're going to come into an interview. You have to work here. And that was Clarissa, and that was the firm, Brisbane Family Law Centre, and I'm still here today.
Amazing.
And because we have such an overlap and had such a strong relationship in my undergrad, it's just such a no-brainer that I'm here. The transition's been easier. I think it's super important to have the same values as your organisation. And so it's a bit of a joke that I'm just part of the furniture.
How long did it take then to actually foster that relationship, which obviously was very authentic as well? Like it wasn't a forced relationship. It sounds like it was very kind of intuitive.
Yeah, I would say 18 months or more.
Right.
So I imagined myself on admission day. What do I need? I need to be admitted. To be admitted, I need PLT. To do PLT, I need a university degree. But this firm really favours personal branding, a collaborative approach, personable lawyering. So I already had those skills within me. I believe that. So I just fine-tuned them and then just signalled them. And that was a process that was about 18 months.
So where your gaps were, how did you actually then go about filling those?
So I knew that this firm, BFLC, is really well regarded. So I wanted to fit the mold. And I knew that I needed to have more specialised skills than what the family law elective at university could give me, even though I went to Griffith and that program is so well regarded. So I started to do sort of independent study. I started to hang out at industry events. So you might find that different areas of law have their own industry bodies. You know, we're all friends. We spend a lot of time together. So I went to the industry body events in family law. It's called the Family Law Practitioners Association. And they were happy to have me as a student. I even went along to their annual conference one year and helped out running around with the microphone. And that was a big win for me, because even though I was running around with the microphone at a big event, every family lawyer in Queensland saw me running around the microphone with at the big event. I got to hand out the name tags, and I made sure I introduced myself to every person, so hundreds of people, whilst handing out the name tags. So I just got myself in front of those people and fine-tuned my family law skills as well.
That's amazing. I love that. I can just imagine you running around with the microphone. Okay, so back to you, Frances. How did you go about the process of articulating what you could bring to an organisation, and particularly in such a competitive market where every student and graduate is better than the next one? How did you go about articulating that value proposition?
Thanks, Susan. I think a lot of it goes back to the points Kiara was making, and that really goes to what are my values? Why am I here? And therefore, what do I have, or what do I want to contribute? And then how can I contribute? That how being the last part. But it's really about, why am I even knocking on your door, or why am I interested in this? What is it about me and how I want to live my life that leads me to a conversation with you about us potentially working together. And from that point, it's about, well, all right, how can I do that? And generally you'll find where you have a deep set of values, you're going to have experiences and skills related to actioning those values in the real world. And that's, I think, where your value comes in. It's that why question, and why are you here? Why are you doing this?
Right. Okay. So you would start with that premise. So hence you would have been very selective in the types of roles, I imagine, that you would have applied for as well then.
Absolutely. So, I mean, in my past career, we'd regularly hire lawyers from various top tier firms to do work for us. Would I want to go and work for them? Absolutely not. Not a chance. So it was very much about, going out there, looking at different bodies, what they do, how they operate. Government's a great place. There's just so much information freely available in annual reports and other publications that have to be made public when we report to Parliament, where you can see, okay, what was the staff turnover of this particular agency? How many people move in and out? What's their approach to gender balance in terms of making sure that, everyone has opportunities to do things. And you get a pretty good picture of that. So you can get a very good picture of what an entity does and how it does it, and whether or not you'd like to be part of that story.
Okay. That's a really, really great message and a really great point there, because I think sometimes it just is something that people maybe just push into the background and they think, oh, well, I'll worry about that a little bit later. But starting with that premise, I think is a good one. I suppose the question is, how do you balance that being in a pandemic where perhaps it is a bit harder to be so selective? I don't know, any thoughts on that?
I think, there is the conventional way of applying for jobs and finding them, and within government, that's knowing about the APS jobs board or the state government. There's also the unconventional way, which, Chiara has explained a really good example there of reaching out, making relationships with people, nurturing those relationships, being interested in what people do. If I bump into a commissioner at work and, you get them started on a certain economic concept or a certain aspect of consumer law, you won't get them, they won't stop talking for a very long time. People are interested in what they do. Now, if you want to do what they do, you need to be interested in it too. And like that, there's a lot of events that you can find out what's going on and reach out and be part of.
So coming from that, also that premise of being curious as well. So, asking
Absolutely.
questions and asking people about their career paths. So, Courtney, just over to you now. Can you take us through how you created your own opportunities?
Yeah, absolutely. I think as well, and Frances and Chiara have both touched on it, it's get involved. Identify where you want to be really purposeful about what that looks like. So similar to Chiara, I can't help but be on a committee. At the moment, I think I'm on 7, so I just can't help myself. And that's been the case right from the beginning of my career. But it's a learning opportunity and it's a networking opportunity. I'm actually someone who's really quite shy. So it was quite hard to do that, but it was a good way to kind of get your foot in the door. So same way, identified the committees that were relevant to my industry. So at Wendy's, I joined the Franchise Council of Australia committee and just the local chapter. So I actually grew up and did my studies in South Australia. So it was a much smaller market, which actually helped a little bit. Join that committee, but then also some subgroups within that to build my experience and be able to contribute. So I sat on the Women in Franchising Committee, and then joined the Association of Corporate Counsel for in-house lawyers, and really grew the experience that way. But I also did other things about what within myself am I really not great at? Public speaking was one. So I did a public speaking course. It was the most terrifying thing I've ever done in my entire life.
You're doing really well now.
And it's still not something that I love, but it's something that you've got to kind of, in-house role, I have to present to boards, I have to discuss with management teams and influence them. So it's not just about getting up and doing presentations in a forum, but also just having those discussions. So as with what's been said so far, it's identifying different skills that you might need for the overall role that you're looking at, and really enhancing those, but also drawing on ones that you're already really good at. So it's quite funny, I fell into the role because I am the most organized person. Everything has a structure. I'm a little bit OCD. That's kind of me. So I actually threw myself into a few random things in the business as well, like organizing our company conference, because I knew I'd be really good at it, really meticulous with detail, and that grew my personal brand within the business. I built connections in the broader business outside the law, and every role that I've had since Wendy's has actually come purposefully. People I've known, me approaching them because it's a brand I really want to work for, and exploring that. And, you know, Nando's, for example, is something that I actually turned down initially purely because I was in another role that I really, really enjoyed, but cultivated that relationship with my now manager. And we just kept speaking for months and months and months. And I just realized it's a brand I couldn't turn down. I absolutely love it. And it's where I needed to be. So being really purposeful about that.
Okay. And even like while you were studying law, did you also join committees then, or was that something that you did a little bit later?
Yeah, I joined a lot of committees while I was at uni.
Right.
Get involved in writing newsletters and bulletins, and I stayed away from the moot team though because of the public speaking fear, but anything I could get involved in, get involved in.
Okay. Oh, that sounds like you were incredibly busy, and it doesn't sound like anything has changed. Just a question for you, Kiara. They say that it's not what you know, but who you know. But now someone, I heard them say it's actually about who knows you. So can you take us through how your brand is so critical to forging your career and your professional profile?
I just jiggied in my seat a little bit because I love this topic so much. I think personal branding is so important, and it is such a fun space to play in as well. If you think about, for example, family law, or even, for example, of being on the open job market, you need to think about where your ideal client or where your ideal employee hangs out. What do they do? And it's about getting yourself in front of them. So personal branding has a few advantages in my eyes. First of all, I know that when I'm looking to engage in a service particularly, so for example, I'm getting married this year and I have to hire lots of people to do lots of things. Yes, I might jump on Google and, type in marriage celebrant, and I'm not just clicking through the Google AdWords anymore. I think we're past that. I might find myself clicking to an article from a wedding magazine who have compiled a list of names. But without fail, when I see a list of names, I'm going to Instagram to check out who these people are. So I believe you need to be in front of the person that you want something from. So if you want a job from them, or you want to do business with them, I believe you need to be in front of them. Personal branding allows you as well to get yourself out there, but in a more meaningful way. So how can I communicate my values to the masses? How can I communicate who I am, what I stand for, what's important to me, and what I know? And the answer to that is social media, events, and networking. So you all have a brand. This is something that I've definitely stolen off my boss and is not something I invented myself, but you all have a brand right now because you've been to events and you've met people. Your lecturers know what kind of person you are. Your uni colleagues know who you are. So you have a brand right now, but it's about whether you're going to sort of take control of it, steer the ship of your brand. And it's not all about online marketing. Personal branding is also through the file work you do and how good of a lawyer you are. Personal branding is also at events, meeting lots of people and having your sort of elevator pitch ready about who you are and what you do. But I guess the reason why I'm so excited to talk about it, and we'll talk to anyone who will listen about it, is because I think it actually has a great utility for you. So personal branding, you know, of course, all the reasons I just listed, but also it creates a little, once you're a practitioner, it creates a little bit of authority. I know if somebody has, you know, a gorgeous personal brand and I get to know them and they talk a lot about what they do, I won't know if they're an excellent marriage celebrant until I'm married. I won't know if they're an excellent psychologist until I start, you know, working with them and really loving working with them. But when I'm finding them online or when I'm hearing about them from word of mouth, I have this almost, not false, but this almost, it's very sped up feeling of authority and feeling like they're going to do a good job. And so by having a personal brand, curating a personal brand, taking control of your personal brand as a student, you're going to be more highly regarded to employees because they know you, you have a bit of authority. But also, if you're going into small or boutique practice, it's very attractive to be able to tell your potential boss that you're going to be able to bring work in. And that's what I use, the same tools to get the job in order to then stay in the job and then thrive in the job and build a management presence. It's the same tools, and it's my branding. It's the way I present. If you're going to put yourself, I just want to add one thing. If you're going to put yourself out there and be a bit different, or be the, you know, overly pink, offensively pink, I call it, lawyer on Instagram, you've got to really know your stuff. So you get to be different if you can run a file with someone and they can go, you know, Kiara knows her law. Or you have a job interview with someone and they go, you know, they're really impressive. I'm sure you have all of those things within you, but just something to keep in mind.
That's amazing. So you would also suggest Instagram as well as LinkedIn? Because I was just thinking for some firms that maybe aren't as progressive, are they going to even be going to Instagram? So would you recommend a number of other platforms as well?
Yes. So my online personal branding is split up into a few platforms. Instagram's a big one. I got my job off Instagram. Do I think that Instagram's only for progressives and you know, new law firms? Not anymore. Instagram's just a gorgeous platform, and there are a lot of lawyers with personal brands on there these days. Also, yes, they're going to check your Instagram, so make it a good one. No matter how, you know, no matter what the hiring firm looks like, they're going to check it. Then the next platform is LinkedIn. That's a different platform. So Instagram I use for people to get to know me. LinkedIn I use more about to signal to other professionals or other lawyers and industry what I know. That's more of an authority building piece on LinkedIn. Then I have a Facebook page, which I'm more talking to potential clients, and that one has grown much more slowly and is sort of there to reinforce the others. And then finally, I have a website, just so when you type my name in, something that I control, something that I made, pops up.
Okay, gosh, so you've got all bases covered there. Amazing. Okay, just for some weird reason, I can't find a Q&A button on my screen. I don't know what's happening, but I feel like I've got gremlins in my machine at the moment. So for people to start putting questions into the chat, that would be fantastic. So if everyone wants to start putting their questions into chat, because we'll go to questions in about five minutes. So I suppose just probably a last few questions. So going back, Frances, to you, this whole concept, which is just something that is always asked about, this, the idea of reaching out and having a coffee with someone and finding out about what they do. What do you think about that? Is that something that is normal, or something that we should encourage people to doing, or are we setting people up for disappointment?
No, absolutely. Reach out. I mean, it's research. It's what is it that I know about what you do, and what steps and initiative have I taken and demonstrated to find out about you and what you do. The more you know about a role, an industry, a business, the better off you're going to be in either deciding to, yes, I want to sell myself in. I want to be able to demonstrate such a great alignment between myself and what you're looking for, or walk away and say, well, actually, it's not really for me.
So your approach or strategy, how would you suggest that perhaps even an undergrad law student does that?
LinkedIn can be helpful. One thing I have noticed that is if you really want to get hold of the people that run very big government departments or whatnot, write them a letter and send it in the post. Sounds incredible, but government departments, their letters come in, they get scanned, they get registered, they go into a system that have to be dealt with in a certain way. It's amazing. Someone will get 10,000 emails a week, they'll get 5 letters. It sounds a bit odd, but it does actually happen. Just however you can, reach out, be persistent. You're not going to get in trouble for being persistent. And if they don't appreciate that, then maybe it's not the right place for you to be. But I've seen that in all areas of government, in commercial operations, not-for-profits. Reach out and make a connection. Okay, that's great. And Courtney, just in terms of even like thinking back now, if you did have the benefit of hindsight and all your wisdom and life experience, I mean, I doubt that you've got any regrets, but would there be anything that you would say to students that, just go and do it? Oops, you're on mute.
Sorry, we always have
That's
to
okay.
once, don't we? I think no regrets necessarily. There's been some missteps along the way, but I think they're all a learning opportunity, and you've got to take that in your stride and learn from that, because it's either taught you about a value that you have or something that you need to kind of work on, or change direction, or change tact. And I just wanted to build on Frances's point as well. I think absolutely reach out. Again, be really purposeful about who you want to talk to. As someone who actually, I've had a couple of people reach out to me to have coffees who have, just finished. It's incredibly flattering. So from the person who's been reached out to, it's lovely. So absolutely do that. But I think be really clear about why you're reaching out. Why you have the interest, why you want to talk to them, why that person inspires you, or why you want to talk to them. I think that's really important. Yep, no, that's great. Okay. And I was just going to ask you, Kiara, imposter syndrome is something that I often hear people talking about. How do you deal with imposter syndrome?
That's a great question. I think imposter syndrome is being really interestingly discussed at the moment. I think it came to the front of our minds with, everyone thought, my God, I have so felt that, and really resonate with the term. But I've actually seen some commentary recently reminding us almost not to have imposter syndrome about imposter syndrome, reminding us that there's so much nuance to success and careers, that I've almost heard it described as, you know, don't forget there's so much under the surface. So yes, you come to the table with your unique skills, and my God, you don't talk to anyone as much as you talk to yourself. So don't you dare make those conversations unkind. And if you need somebody to remind you of that, you know, call me and I'll scream some nice things at you. But also, sometimes, you know, you're going to have an off day, and there's so much more at play to the success of your career and your working life and your mental health and work-life balance, if that's even a term anymore. That's not in your control. The law is an age-old profession, industry, you know, the wheels turn with or without you. So the discussions I'm hearing about imposter syndrome now are actually about, you know, is imposter syndrome just another word and another stick we have to whack ourselves with for not being kind enough to ourselves, when sometimes it's just really hard to be your own biggest fan because you're up against it, and that's okay. So my message there is, something you can control is how you talk to yourself. So please be kind to yourself. But you're not the only one in this battle trying to get this done. There's a lot more systemically at play here. So just try to go with the flow. Something that I learned after a really stressful first year in practice was that I don't need to be so black and white and linear about things. I can just let feelings wash over me and not take them, not own them, not grab onto them. I can let an email go unanswered. I think instead of saying, you know, don't succumb to imposter syndrome, instead say you're just doing your best. And there are so much at play here.
Yeah, that's a huge thing, and something that is so critical. So it's something that we all need to keep working on. It's it's very hard, the expectations that we put on ourselves. We're going to just have a look at some of the questions now. So I'm going to just have a look at them, and let's have a look. Any thoughts about the pathway towards supervised legal practice? That's just a general question that's come up. So anyone got any ideas about that? I suppose that's quite a broad question, isn't it, in terms of, you know, depends on so many things.
I guess they mean, you know, that first role, right? And the pathway to that first role, which you'll be supervised in, is sorry, exactly what we've been discussing. Keep your eyes peeled for absolutely any opportunity. You know, live your values, you know, broadcast your values, get to know as many people as you can.
Mm-hmm. And know that it's not a quick thing. It takes time, and everyone is saying the same thing. It's you know, it is a difficult market. It's a competitive job market, not just in law but other professions as well. So that resilience and tenacity is huge there. And
can I share something that took me a little while to learn? And if you had have told me this when I was in my last year of law school, I would have rolled my eyes at you. But it's actually true because I'm living it.
Yeah.
The first, I think, 3 years of your career, you have to take every opportunity, grab every opportunity. But once you get to almost 3 years PAE, the power shifts. And now you've been trained, now you're good at what you do. And a lot of my friends, lateral transfers are all people are talking about. You know, what can I get if I approach these people? And it's the power imbalance has completely flipped for people at my PAE level. And so all of this time we've been thinking, you know, how do I get the job? How do I get the job? How do I get the job? But after a little while, once you're in a job, you become incredibly valuable at about the 3-year PAE mark. So you can pivot and do something amazing at that point, if that's an option.
Good advice. Yeah, I agree with you. At university, they do advertise the commercial corporation law platforms, and it is very competitive for those clerkships. This individual doesn't see themselves working for a huge corporation. How do you find other businesses that aren't in the top tiers that you wouldn't have considered? Any thoughts on that?
I think pretend to be a consumer, pretend to be a client for a day, and, you know, tell yourself you've got to dividing fences dispute and hit the internet and see what pops up. I think then you're going to find the firms with the best brands and then have a look at what the firm values and then what they do. But I had fun pretending to be a client to try to understand the family law market.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I think kind of that whole idea of what you've already all spoken about, just going and talking to people and asking their ideas and their opinions as well, and also just like looking through job boards and just seeing which jobs grab them and perhaps why. So I think kind of that's a little bit of that starting with that self-awareness is often kind of the critical part to this as well. So what resonates and what jumps at you, what gets your attention, etc.
And just to add
Yeah.
to that one, Susan, no one understands the market better than those that are in the market. So getting out there, talking to people, talking about who their competitors are, who does things really well, who's respected, who's not, who's got reputation for this, that, and the other, you'll learn a lot very, very quickly.
Yeah, that's great. How do students go about shortlisting potential firms to consider or apply to? It sounds like the panelists were very focused in their approaches. Anyone got some thoughts on that one?
I can't talk to a firm, but I can talk to businesses, I guess. And I think just it's about, again, kind of working out what's really important to you. Is it the type of law? Is it the type of people who are in the business? Is it the size of the business? Is it the hours? Is it whether they have flexible work policies? Do you want to be working from home? Do you want to be working part-time? What's their purpose? Do they do any philanthropic things outside of just business? Do they do donations? Do they have charity work? All of those type of things. What is it that's important to you? And where do you align yourself in the business, I think. So again, not firm specific, but
yeah, but you know, you're going back to that same premise of values as well, and kind of the vision and what does the business, what does the organization do? And yeah, so that is critical. As a mature student who graduates in October, they're obviously nervous in regards to getting into the legal job market. How important is life experience compared to youth? And will firms view it as an advantage? So, well, this is like...
I guess I speak as someone that went in and studied law as a mature age student. I think, unfortunately, there will be some employers who don't see it as an advantage. The sooner you find out that, the better it is for you. You can just move on. But I think even more importantly is focusing on the process of looking for jobs. That is, how am I packaging myself up? Who am I talking to? What is the information I'm finding out? How am I focusing on moving forward in the process? What applications am I getting out there? It's very much focused on the process, not on the end result. You can worry about the end result when you have those letters of offer and you're figuring out which one to sign, but focus on the process and just work the process, make that your focus.
And I mean, I kind of think that also the typical law student has changed as well. I mean, most of the students that I'm speaking to are what you would say later lawyers or mature lawyers. So I think that is something that's a little bit of a misconception. And I think it's also around always about how you present yourself. And sometimes it can be more of your thing than what it actually, you know, is. Oh, the questions are coming in thick and fast. In terms of what would you do if your applications are frequently rejected, despite reaching out to people throughout your degree? This person's also been struggling to gain experience in areas of law which they have a passion in.
For me, it's volunteer. Put yourself in front of them. You know, if you can approach it that way and get the experience at the same time, that's only going to set you up moving forward. So it's not always about landing your dream job straight away. Like we were talking about earlier, it might be a committee, it might be you know, half a day a week at volunteering at the courthouse or an administrative role or something like that, just to get your face out there and your foot in the door.
Is it possible to work in-house under a supervised legal practicing certificate?
It is, provided there's someone with an unrestricted practicing certificate working there as well, so a general counsel. So I did my supervised legal practice at Wendy's, but as I mentioned earlier, there was a experienced general counsel who signed off and did everything that needed to be done. Without that, you wouldn't have that supervision necessarily, so it depends. Possible, but it depends.
Okay. This is another question. In terms of work experience at a law firm, how can you make sure that you're not exploited by the potential employer?
I think it needs to be a value exchange. And so have a think about what they're giving you and what you're giving them. It's a really tricky thing because, of course, if we were to go out and say blanket rule, unpaid work at the undergrad level is okay, that would exclude a lot of people. It would have excluded me. I couldn't afford not to work through uni and be paid for that. But by the same token, it is a useful tool at times. So if that value exchange stays right, for example, at the law firm where I was a settlements clerk, I was making settlements happen. I was contributing meaningfully to that law firm, so I needed to be paid for it. If the opportunity is, say, with a charity or with a CLC or with an organisation where it's a very deep learning opportunity and less so an opportunity where you're sort of moving things forward, maybe that gives rise to a different arrangement. So just keep a check on the value exchange, make sure that the value you're giving is being rewarded or the value they're giving isn't costing, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you. There's just a couple of last questions. If you want to pursue a career, I think this is saying as an academic, or maybe in academia, should you continue to study your master's in law or practice before continuing to study? So if you want to go down the academic path, is it better just to go straight and do your master's, or should you try and practice?
I think it's a good question in that it really highlights a lot of what we've been speaking about. That is, when you don't know the answer to the questions, you need to be out there talking to the people, targeting the people that you want to, be like at some point in the future, and asking them, okay, what were your pathways? So it highlights, I suppose, what we've been talking about and how you can apply that to get the answer.
Yep. All right. Another question about being an overseas practitioner, about to be admitted in Australia in the next 6 months. How do you stand out in your job search? So, yeah, a lot of that we've discussed about the transferable skills, and I'm thinking also like in terms of, coming as an overseas practitioner as well. So what you can bring around adaptability and resilience and tenacity, starting a new life in a new country. Perhaps that could be part of it.
I agree. And I think tailoring applications is important while you're applying for those particular roles, and reaching out to departments or subcommittees that could help. So I know for an in-house lawyer, we've got a group with the Association of Corporate Counsel that focuses on overseas practitioners and helping them to again get a foot in the door. So it's working out if there's any of those that fit the space you're looking in.
What was that group? Sorry, Courtney, I'm just going to make a note of that. What was that?
Association of Corporate Counsel.
Okay, all right. And
they've got a number of subgroups within that you can go to, and they help focus. So that's an area I sit on their diversity and inclusion committee, and that's one of our subgroups who really help people coming from overseas and just work through what that might look like.
Okay, that's fantastic. Thank you. I'll make a note of that. The last question is how to land an entry-level job when the entry-level job now require 2 to 3 years of experience. I feel like we probably covered that one off. I mean, one thing we probably didn't talk about, and we've only got like 1 minute to go, was the role of mentors. So anyone want to share their experiences with mentors?
I would love to if I could. I've acted as a mentor through the Association of Corporate Counsel for the last 4 years. And I was actually really lucky enough to have been nominated by my mentee last year for Mentor of the Year for that association, which I actually won, which was incredibly
amazing.
Mentoring is enormous. And that was something, sorry, I should have raised earlier, but both ways, informal, formal, all different types of mentoring, upwards, downwards, it's crucial, whatever you choose in your career. So always get involved. It's part of the coffee catch-ups we spoke about earlier. That's informal mentoring. There's programs you can sign up and pay for that's more structured. You can do a bit of both. It is really important in my view.
I agree. Well, I can't believe it. We're clockwork. It's right on 1:30. We've covered all our questions. So I think that seems like a good place to end. So I just wanted to thank you once again for your great insights and for your sage wisdom. And I'm sure that our participants will take away a lot of treasure and a lot of pearls from you. So thank you all for being so generous with your time and giving up your time to be involved in the college and this webinar. It's very much appreciated. And we've just had a lovely thank you as well for an informative session with a different viewpoint from many other seminars. So thanks once again. And look forward to catching up with our participants at our next webinar series. Just stay tuned to the College of Law events. Thanks very much. And the recording of this will be available on the resources page probably in a good couple of weeks. You should be able to access this recording and it will be sent to you automatically anyway. Thanks very much and have a lovely afternoon. Bye for now.
Thank you. Thank you as always, Susan.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
Susan.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone. Bye.